When Lucie Blackman, an English tourist, vanished from Tokyo, her friends and family feared the worst. Little did they know, her disappearance would unveil the dark and hidden crimes of one of Japan's most notorious killers. In today's video, we'll delve into the chilling case of Joji Obara. Our story begins in the southeast of England, in the picturesque county of Kent. Kent, often referred to as the Garden of England, boasts a rich history and thriving service-based economy. While renowned for its historic cathedrals and castles, Kent is also gaining recognition for its vibrant food and wine scene. Nestled near the western border of Kent lies the quaint town of Sevenoaks, where Lucie Blackman called home. Born on September 1st, 1978, Lucie was the eldest of 3 siblings, with younger sister Sophie and brother Rupert completing the family. Sadly, Lucie's childhood was marked by her parents' divorce, leading her, along with her mother, brother, and sister, to relocate within Kent. Lucie was known as a cheerful child, always brimming with energy and radiating positivity. Her meticulous planning skills shone through in her academic pursuits. After graduating from school, Lucie decided to pursue a career as a flight attendant with British Airways, enticed by the prospect of traveling the world. However, as the years passed, the constant travel and low pay took a toll on her, plunging her into financial strain and leaving her feeling drained. Like many young professionals navigating their first job, Lucie began to reassess her career path and overall direction. Despite her love for travel, the demanding nature of her role at British Airways took its toll on her finances and mental well-being. It was then that Lucie and her colleague Louise devised a plan. They realized that traveling didn't have to entail constant hopping from one country to another. They could settle in a foreign destination, secure stable employment, and improve their financial situation. Intrigued by Japan's unique culture and lifestyle, Lucie and Louise resolved to find work in the land of the rising sun to alleviate their debts. Japan, with its myriad UNESCO World Heritage Sites and deeply ingrained traditions, their decision to embark on this journey was daunting, but they drew strength from each other. They booked their tickets and embarked on their adventure to Japan. In May 2000, Lucie and Louise found themselves in the vibrant heart of Tokyo, settling into an apartment near Roppongi, renowned for its bustling nightlife and fusion of Western and Japanese cultures. They wasted no time in securing employment and soon landed jobs at a local nightclub called Casablanca, where they served as hostesses to its diverse clientele. In Japan, customs and social norms differ significantly from those in the Western world, and host and hostess clubs, known as kyapakura, epitomize this cultural distinction. Hostesses engage in activities such as lighting cigarettes, serving drinks, and engaging in conversation with patrons, creating a welcoming and entertaining atmosphere. While dancing and explicit behavior are prohibited, kyapakuras provide a space for patrons to unwind and socialize in a relaxed setting. In Roppongi, many establishments sought Western women to cater to their Japanese clientele, offering decent pay and requiring strong customer service skills. Lucie and Louise embraced the challenge, eager to immerse themselves in this unique cultural experience and improve their financial situation. As part of Casablanca Club's policies, all hostesses are encouraged to have dinner with their customers before escorting them to the club for their shift, a tradition known as a dohan in Japan. Lucie's parents expressed concern about her choice of employment, but she reassured them, emphasizing her confidence and awareness of her boundaries. She likened the job to being an air hostess on the ground. On the warm afternoon of July 1st, 2000, Lucie donned her sandals and black dress as she prepared to leave. Spotting her friend Louise in the adjacent room, she informed her about her dohan with a customer from the Casablanca Club. She mentioned that he had offered her a new mobile phone in exchange, and the dinner would be brief at a restaurant near the beach. Understanding the situation, Louise advised Lucie not to be too late, as they had plans for the evening. Louise's boyfriend, Scott Fraser, was also nearby, and they were all anticipating the weekend ahead. Lucie kept in touch with Louise throughout the day, sending 3 messages. Her first, at 1:30 p.m., stated, "I am now with my lunch date." At 5 p.m., she messaged Louise again, saying, "I'm being taken to the sea." Finally, around 6:45 p.m., she sent her last message, "I'll be back in half an hour," which she also sent to Scott shortly after. However, by 8 p.m., Lucie had not returned home. As Tokyo transitioned into the night, Lucie's whereabouts remained unknown. Despite informing her friend and boyfriend of her return, she had disappeared without a trace. The situation was daunting. What do you do when your friend goes missing in a foreign city, especially one as vast and unfamiliar as Tokyo? With its population of 34.4 million people, locating one person seemed nearly impossible, especially considering the language and cultural barriers. Louise reached out to local authorities, but initial responses seemed disinterested. Days passed with no sign of Lucie. None of her colleagues at the club had seen her, and attempts to contact her went unanswered. Then, on the evening of July 3rd, Louise received a call from a man with a thick Japanese accent. He spoke English slowly but clearly, informing her, "Lucie can't speak right now. She's okay but won't be returning home. She has joined a new cult and is safe, undergoing training in Hutton Chiba." Back in England, Lucie's mother, Jane, reacted swiftly and intensely upon learning of Lucie's disappearance. The news filled her with terror from the moment she heard her daughter was missing. The anonymous call only heightened her concerns, as Lucie's sudden disappearance was completely out of character. The very next morning, Lucie's sister, Sophie, and her ex-boyfriend Jamie boarded a flight to Tokyo. The challenge ahead of them was vast and daunting. Despite filing a missing persons report, the police showed little interest in Lucie's case. Working with authorities over the following days proved cumbersome and frustrating. They simply didn't seem to care. Despite Lucie being an adult, her silence could indicate a life-threatening situation. Time was of the essence, adding to the extreme anxiety felt by her family. Realizing they were getting nowhere with the local police, they turned to the media instead. They hoped that by bringing Lucie's case into the public eye, it would generate tips and push the police into action. Public appearances in front of the Japanese press yielded results. As Lucie's disappearance gained notoriety and attention, the Japanese public began to offer assistance, though many tips turned out to be dead ends. As the 2-week mark approached, anxiety and hope intensified. The English and Japanese media became fixated on the case, with even Prime Minister Tony Blair and Richard Branson making appeals. Meanwhile, Lucie's family decided to enlist the help of a private investigator from England, who promptly flew to Tokyo. He began scouring the streets of Roppongi and Ginza, eventually reaching Club Casablanca. One of the Western hostesses at the club came forward, revealing that she had seen Lucie with another man before her disappearance. With assistance from contacts at Scotland Yard, the investigator created an artist's impression based on the description provided, resulting in a composite image. As Lucie's disappearance became widely known, several Western women eventually came forward, sharing troubling accounts of their encounters with a man resembling the one depicted in the composite image. As more stories emerged, a disturbing pattern emerged. The man would take the women out on dohans, promising them money and gifts before bringing them back to his apartment, spiking their drinks, and assaulting them. While the name of the perpetrator varied among victims, his physical description remained consistent. A middle-aged man with medium-length hair, handsome, charming, and affluent-looking. The accumulation of accounts, coupled with the police sketch, provided investigators with a solid lead to pursue. However, despite this promising development, no significant breakthroughs occurred. As weeks turned into months and Lucie's disappearance lingered, doubts arose about whether she would ever be found. Over time, public and media interest waned, diminishing the prospects of gathering crucial evidence. Surveillance footage was overwritten, fingerprints faded, and eyewitness recollections blurred. The chances of solving the case seemed increasingly slim with each passing day. In a significant development during the 4th month of the police investigation, officers finally made a breakthrough. As October approached, a key suspect emerged. Joji Obara. Although he frequented Casablanca Club, he used different aliases. Nonetheless, his description closely matched that provided by multiple victims. Born on August 10th, 1952, Joji Obara hailed from a family rooted in hard work, which eventually translated into wealth. Joji's father was a Korean immigrant who arrived in Japan with little money but grand aspirations. His unwavering determination and strong work ethic propelled him to success. Starting as a scrap collector, he eventually amassed considerable wealth, establishing a business empire spanning taxi companies, pachinko parlors, and real estate ventures. Joji, along with his 2 brothers, inherited the reputation of being privileged rich kids. Shielded by his father's affluence, Joji was rewarded with a house when he enrolled in Takeo Senior High School in Kanagawa. Unfortunately, at the age of 17, his father sadly passed away, leaving Joji and his 2 brothers over 40 million yen in assets across Osaka and Tokyo, the equivalent to £25 million, or $33 million. After graduating from Ko University with a degree in politics and law, he became a naturalized Japanese citizen, with his brothers moving on to become doctors. But progressing into his 30s, Joji found his everyday job to be tedious and boring. It was around this time, from 1986 to 1991, that Japan experienced an economic bubble, meaning that real estate and stock market prices began to rocket. Joji heavily invested in this, believing that prices would continue to indefinitely rise. But in the early months of 1992, this bubble burst, causing real estate prices to plunge and Japan's economy to stagnate. He lost the risk, and as a result, his firm collapsed, his fortune almost entirely gone. But he wasn't out of the fight yet. Instead, he began to use his company as a money laundering front for the Yakuza, also known as the Japanese Mafia. So, as soon as Joji was recognized as the man in the police sketch, officers began to build a case around him, and of course, keep him under close observation. And finally, in early October, he was officially arrested and charged on 5 counts of indecent assault, therefore allowing officers to raid and investigate his property. Clues. What they found inside was devastating. He had a large library full of videos of himself taking advantage of his drugged victims, with some of these crimes dating back all the way to the early 90s. He had been committing these awful acts of violence for almost an entire decade. Despite police findings and victim accusations, Joji denied all acts of violence and also denied ever meeting Lucie. This is on the contrary to multiple reports placing him in the same bar as her only days prior to her disappearance. With Joji behind bars, but as evidence mostly circumstantial, Lucie's family needed more information to feel comfortable that he was Lucie's suspect. Off the back of this, an international appeal was launched to ask anyone who may have had experience with Joji Obara to come forward. 8 years earlier, in February of 1992, he was in love with a woman named Carita Ridgway. In fact, they were engaged, looking forward to spending the rest of their lives together, but things didn't quite turn out that way. Carita was an aspiring actress, but with her dream of making it big, she needed money to attend acting school. Carita decided to pay for tuition by becoming a hostess in Tokyo's Kapakuras, and as part of this agreement, she would go on dohans. On February 27, 1992, Carita attended a dohan with a rich Japanese man, but after this date, she was dropped off unconscious. Carita was rushed to the hospital, in which doctors did the very best they could to save her. But tragically, 2 days later, she died of liver failure. The cause of her death was officially deemed to be hepatitis E, or natural causes. She had no concerning medical history, and she was always clean. The boyfriend contacted Japanese authorities, who, in return, reopened Carita's case with a sharp focus to link her with Joji Obara, and the conclusion they were looking for came very quickly. Amongst the 400 videotapes found in Joji's home was one named Carita Ridgway, and in his diary on February 27, 1992, he had written Carita Ridgway, "Too much chloroform." As tragic as this development was, this information was all that police needed to upgrade Joji's charges from assault to murder. And although this fresh evidence was successful in strengthening his role in Lucie's disappearance, it sadly didn't confirm it. But then, in January of 2001, 6 months after Lucie had vanished, a very sad and solemn discovery was made. On January 10, 2001, investigations led police to a cave off the shores of Mira in Kanagawa, and this cave was only 100 meters away from Joji's apartment. While here, they noticed uneven concrete underneath the basin of a bathtub. Rather puzzled, they began to remove the concrete, and what they found underneath were a series of packages. They slowly opened these packages up, and tragically, inside each of them were dismembered body parts, with even the head entombed in concrete. When post-mortem examiners cut into the cement, they hoped to find teeth to match with dental records. But instead, they immediately found one identifiable feature. It was long, natural blonde hair. As you can probably guess, the body was later confirmed to belong to Lucie Blackman. Lucie's family was devastated. The long spell of silence from their daughter already painted a very grave reality for her, but they always held on to the hope that maybe one day she would return, and this discovery would put an end to their hopes. The discovery of Lucie's body would ignite a very long, exhausting legal battle between Joji Obara and not just the family of Lucie and Carita, but the family of many other victims too. Joji had now been charged with 9 counts of indecent assault, the murder of Carita Ridgway, and now the murder of Lucie Blackman. But he would still deny having anything to do with Lucie's death, and this was despite her body being found not even 2 minutes from his apartment. Joji admitted that he'd spent the evening with her, but insisted that shortly after 5 p.m. she had left the apartment. Apparently she was high, and therefore he asked her to leave. The entire trial would last almost 7 long years, which was full of disappointing spectacles by Joji. In one of his days in court, He refused to leave his jail cell, and instead he stripped naked, held onto his toilet basin, and repeatedly screamed no. There is some extremely frustrating evidence coming up, but before that, I wanted to share with you that Joji was found not guilty of the murder of Lucie Blackman, which makes the following details all the more enraging. Through the multitudes of analysis, investigators were able to confirm the following. At around 4 p.m. on July 1st, 2000, Lucie met up with Joji. An hour later, she rang Louise to say that they were on their way to the coast. Mobile phone data confirms this. At 5:30 p.m., a Japanese couple saw Joji and Louise together at a seaside resort, and a photo from a camera from Joji's flat confirms that they were on the beach shortly after. Blonde hairs belonging to Lucie were found in his flat, and this was confirmed by DNA analysis. Mobile phone records confirmed that Lucie made a final call in the evening while in his home. This was confirmed by triangulating her mobile phone's coordinates. Copies of a forged signature were found in his apartment, proving that he was the fraudster who'd pretended to be her through a letter. We don't quite know what happened later this evening, but the very next day, on July 2nd, phone records show that Joji had called several hospitals in his area, asking how to treat someone who's experienced a drug overdose. The very next day, on July 3rd, receipts confirm that Joji purchased a chainsaw, cement mix, and other tools from a hardware store. And later that afternoon, police were called by Joji's neighbor, who'd complained about suspicious activity and noise, as apparently they had heard terrified shouting the day prior. It gets even more suspicious. Police reports indicate that late that afternoon, officers arrived at Joji's apartment to request that they look around. Upon entering, they found that he had cement mix on his hands, and he was visibly shaken. When police requested to look in his bathroom, he became aggressive and refused to let them in, instead exclaiming that they'd already seen enough. The police left without pressing this issue any further. Neighbors reported that later in the evening on the same day, they witnessed Joji pacing the small beach next to his apartment several times. And hospital records show that he was treated for extensive bug bites the next day as a result for being outside all night. However, despite the text messages, phone calls, witness reports, police reports, forged signature, mobile phone data, DNA, previous cases, and bug bites, he was still found innocent over Lucie's murder. He was found guilty on 9 counts of indecent assault and the murder of Carita Ridgway, therefore sentencing him to life. But really, the reason for this is the prosecutor couldn't find any of his DNA on her body, and also they couldn't determine the cause of her death, so technically he was dismissed. And thankfully, 1 year later after being appealed, Joji was retrialed on the murder of Lucie Blackman, where he was finally found guilty. But seriously, this should have happened the first time around. At least to me. But this case highlights the show incompetence of Japan's former police force. I know in recent years, they've reformed to become more compassionate and responsive. But back then, they really didn't care about their tourists. A few side notes from this case. While Joji was under trial and not yet found guilty, he offered Lucie's mother condolence money, formally requesting her to stop the trial, for £450,000. Understandably, she refused, but only days later, her ex-husband, which is Lucie's father, took the money instead. Obviously, this caused a massive rift in the family, and I'll let you be the judge on how moral this was to his own daughter. Joji's case is unique. He truly is a deviant and a monster to the highest degree. He assaulted not one, but hundreds of women, and technically became a killer through his own ventures. And despite over 99% of Japan's murderers confessing once caught, he remains as part of the 1% who refuses to accept responsibility and blame. Joji Obara is a chronic liar who denies any accountability, and obviously, he is used to getting everything he desires. Who knows how many more women he would have terrorized if it wasn't for the tenacity and strong will of Lucie's family in France, all of which even 22 years later continue to live their lives with a hole in their heart. And so concludes the case of Joji Obara, Lucie Blackman, and Carita Ridgway. Thanks for watching, guys. Please don't hesitate to show your support. Give this video a thumbs up and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.